will help. We are back and we are live with you for the final women's quarterfinal. I'm joined here by Miles. Miles, how are you doing?
Hey, good afternoon, evening, morning to everybody that's listening.
Great. Great to have you on board again. Of course, you were here yesterday. Any quick thoughts on the Lynette match? I don't know if you saw that, her winning in straight sets earlier.
Yeah, kind of saw that coming. I mean, she's been a giant killer the whole 2 weeks. She's been at the Australian Open, taking out Kontaveit, taking out Alexandrova, Garcia in the last round, and now
Yeah.
Pliskova. She's playing some of the best tennis of her life, so good for her.
Yep. Any thoughts on Sabalenka Vekic? I saw the win predictor said 76, I think 24 in favor of Sabalenka. For once, I would say that sounds about right to me.
Yeah, I think Sabalenka on paper is the favorite. I just think the underlying layer of what their head-to-head is may present some issues if Sabalenka kind of gets into her head a little bit, which she has done later on in Grand Slams before. So I think she's the winner. I think she's obviously the heavy prediction to win, but it'll be an interesting matchup because they both can take control of points.
Mm. Surprisingly, Vekic has a 5-1 lead in their head-to-head.
Yep. A lot of them go back maybe 5 or 6 years. They've been on tour for about the same time, give or take a couple years. So I think they're pretty familiar with each other's games in a way.
Yeah, but that certainly caught me by surprise to see that Vekic had such an advantage. I don't know, maybe a lot of those matches occurred a few years ago. Not sure, but either way, Vekic has actually already eked out a tiny advantage in the first game, 15-30. We saw yesterday and today to a lesser extent, but yesterday I saw basically I think there was a break at the beginning of every match yesterday, and it ended up proving decisive. I think. Korda was down 3-love. I mean, there was extenuating circumstances there, I know, but he was down 3-love pretty early on. Goes on to lose that match. Rybakina, I think, broke early against Ostapenko. I know you were covering that on the channel. What other matches did we have yesterday? Oh, and of course, Azarenka breaking immediately Jessica Pegula and never looked back. Did that result surprise you, by the way?
Very much so. Yes, the way the match happened and the result definitely surprised me. I think there may be something brewing in the mind of Pagula about when she
Okay.
gets to these quarterfinals, so definitely surprised me. But I mean, good for Azarenka. She hasn't been to the semifinals here since she won it in 2013. So that's a result in and of itself.
Yeah, there is a pattern emerging. Perhaps we need to see one or two more quarterfinal stumbles. But I mean, don't forget, of course, she played Swiatek in her most recent one, and I think that was competitive, albeit that she did lose that US Open quarterfinal. But yeah, there is a pattern emerging, and of course, she might just need to have an easy quarterfinal, if you like, against an unseeded player or somebody who's not won a couple of majors before. Azarenka, of course, has been here, seen it and done it and won the T-shirt, albeit it's a decade since she won the Australian Open. Does it feel like a long time since she won those titles?
Yes, it does. The tennis landscape, especially in the WTA, looked very different when she was kind of, in her prime and at the top of the women's game. But yeah, it definitely feels different. It looks different. I feel like she's a much different player. Still, some of the core of her game is there, but I feel like she has a little bit less sting on her shots, and then now even more anticipation. So she's really, really good at redirecting pace and supplying some of her own when she needs it. So it's good to kind of see the evolution of Sabalenka. I've been watching her literally since 2007. I don't know if people remember this, but she beat Hingis at the US Open in 2007, and I've kind of had my eye on her ever since then, and she's had a magnificent career. So it's really interesting to see
Hingis.
how she's still
Wow,
relevant. Yeah.
that takes us back. I think somebody asked actually a question in the live chat a couple of days ago, or probably yesterday actually, about if any of us had been to the Australian Open. And my one occasion at the Australian Open was 2006. I saw Hingis play Sammy Stosa. And I think you responded to that. Actually. I think that was Hingis' comeback, wasn't it, 2006?
Yep, that was the first Grand Slam she played in her comeback in 2006. Yep.
I don't, from memory, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong. After Hingis came back, she didn't really leave a mark, really, as such, on the sport.
She made back-to-back quarterfinals in the 06 and 07 Australian Opens. But other than that, she may have picked up like a title here or a title there, nothing too big. But yeah, it wasn't as massive as her first career was, nowhere even close.
I mean, I remember her winning juniors at Wimbledon, and she was already being heralded as the next big thing. And of course, did go on and win Wimbledon itself. And by the way, she's still She's 1980. She was born, so she's 42.
Hmm.
Which how old
She
is
could
Serena?
still
41.
42. I think she'll be 43 in 2023. So I think she's 42
Okay, so
now.
she's 42. So her
Hmm.
and Serena, let's say, give or take, are the same age. Sabalenka held, by the way, in that first game. If anything sensational happens, don't worry. We will bring you immediately back to the tennis. We sometimes get sidetracked with certain issues, as we are right now, but we immediately return to the tennis if we see break points, sensational shots, or set points. But of course, as is our want, we will go down alleyways. Let us know, by the way, in the live chat if you have memories of any of the players, whether it be Azarenka, who's still, of course, on the tour, or Martina Hingis or anyone else. Also, let us know where you're tuning in from. Where were you exactly, Miles?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been in Atlanta for a couple of years now. So this East Coast time frame isn't the best in Australia, but the deeper the tournament goes, the better it gets because they put most of the most of the matches, if not all, on Rod Laver earlier in the day for them. So it works out.
Yeah, at least for the women, yeah. And I believe the women's semi-finals are going to be on in the evening, Australia. That probably doesn't work out quite so well for you, right?
If it's in the evening in Australia, no. But I mean, I'm good at sticking through it and staying up. If I really am intrigued by the matchup, I'll stay up. I'll find something to do or set an early alarm, and kind of get my day started early.
Indeed. So we've got Azarenka against Rybakina, and we'll have Linette against the winner of Sabalenka Vekic. Vekic is just double faulted, so it's 30 all on her serve. As Miles and I both suggested beforehand, for me, it's all on the racket of Sabalenka, and she really is the favourite here. That doesn't mean, it is a two-horse race, and there's been far bigger surprises in tennis than Sabalenka losing a tennis match, that's for sure. But Sabalenka's looked pretty awesome, not just throughout this tournament, but throughout the year, obviously winning in Adelaide beforehand. I had Sabalenka to win the tournament before it began. Who did you have, by the way?
Sabalenka as well, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not, I think choosing Sabalenka, probably for many other slams, you might go, well, have you not thought about, certain issues, certain players that you would have ahead of her in the queue? But I just didn't have anyone ahead of her in my list, if you like.
Hmm.
Even Swiatek, I didn't have ahead of Sabalenka. The only thing that was casting a doubt on my mind was the mentality. Never been in a Grand Slam final before. She's been in what feels like 3 or 4 Grand Slam semifinals, quite recently, of course, in New York, where she was a breakup in that third set, by the way. And I think she could have won that match against Swiatek. Swiatek was a bit more vulnerable in New York than at other tournaments, that's for sure. But then also Sabalenka, you never know. You just suddenly turn on your TV and she's 5-1 down and facing match points to Kai Kanepi in the second or third round. You just don't know where you're going to be at with Saba, at least in the past. But I hope she's turned a corner.
I think she has. I mean, we'll see how this match progresses, but there's just a certain swagger, for lack of a better term, around Sabalenka now. It seems like she has more confidence when she walks up to the court, especially to the service line. Feels like she has more rhythm in her game and just kind of her overall balance on the court. So even if she doesn't win here, I think that'll be a blow considering the draw being so kind to her. First, to a certain extent. But I think she'll still keep plugging away. I think that's her take on life and in tennis. Just keep plugging away, and she does it pretty good. She's pretty fearless and powerful out there.
Yeah. Although I do agree with you largely, I do think Swiatek Bencic fourth round is tough, and she overcame that test with flying colours.
Yeah, I think that was one of the toughest fourth round matches on paper. It definitely presented some problems to Sabalenka, so that actually made me more confident in her that she was able to get that match in straight sets and kind of take over Bencic, who had been playing well in her own right too. So yeah, I think there's a bunch of signals that show that Sabalenka is coming into her own. It's just a matter of kind of being able to do it on the biggest stages, deeper and deeper into the tournament, which she hasn't quite done, but she's right there.
Some Croatians there reacting to that point because the ball from Vekic hit the top part, the cord of the net, and just thought about going over but didn't. She's had a couple of double faults already.
I think she's had 3. Yeah, 3 already in this first game. Yeah.
Wow. 3 double faults already from Vekic, suggesting a few nerves. She's never been in a Grand Slam semi-final before. I know we're at the quarterfinal stage. I'm pretty sure she's never been in a quarterfinal.
She's been in one quarterfinal back at the U.S. Open in 2019, losing to Bencic, actually, I believe.
So you might be a couple of seconds ahead of me. That I've just seen her double fault. I'm guessing that's her third rather than her fourth.
I might be. What score do you see right now
I've
on your
got
end?
advantage Sabalenka right now, break point.
Me too. Me too. And they're
Yeah.
in the middle of the point right now.
Yeah, so I think you are a few seconds ahead because I'm just about to see a potential second serve here from Vekic. But doesn't matter. That's not that important. What is important is that Sabalenka has a break point.
Yep.
And well, I'm in the middle of the rally, but you'll probably be somewhere. Oh, I see. Vekic has saved it. So it's deuce on the forehand. Yeah, so listen, maybe Vekic is feeling a bit anxious. She'll be desperate to get this first game out of the way. That is for sure. Who did you have winning? Who did you have getting to your men's final, by the way? Because I'm guessing you have Djokovic to win.
No.
Oh, go on then.
When I originally made my fantasy bracket, I went really bold.
Holger Rune?
No, even bolder.
Go on.
I had Taylor Fritz and Yannick Sinner in the final. Actually,
That is bold.
They both lost before the quarterfinals. So yeah, wasn't thinking too clearly.
But Fritz, I actually get a little bit. I do get that. Sinner, I actually don't get so much. I know Sinner ends up going further and obviously pushed Tsitsipas to 5 sets. I didn't see anything going into this major since New York that suggested Sinner was ready for me to get to a Grand Slam final. I thought New York was probably his highest level on a hard court in his career. But he hasn't really come close to matching those heroics that he said. By the way, I'm now back at deuce after a smash from Sabalenka. So I must say, Fritz, I get, despite the fact that he went out in the second round, and that's the second slam in a row. He's gone out super early.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought Fritz. I had Fritz in my semi-final. Hasn't worked out.
I just went with heart over head sometimes in the men's draw. I feel like sometimes it's just so easy to pencil in Djokovic. And I mean, we all can do that now pretty much in the tournament, at least pencil him into the final and see what happens. But he's so clutch. I just kind of wanted to see something different. And I feel just to go back to Sinner for a little bit, I do feel like Sinner is going to have like a sneaky rise. I feel like that's kind of been most of his career so far, being a little unassuming and kind of getting in when no one really thought that he would be magnificent. I think people think he's going to be great, but for some reason there's not as much hype around him as there is, like, say, Carlos Alcaraz and even Holger Rune to a certain extent. So I think he will just find a way to be in between that bunch. I just kind of thought it may have happened at the Australian Open because, I mean, we see with people like Magdalene, I mean, anything could happen. And the Happy Slam has a way of doing that sometimes, just kind of bringing in the good vibes for people that you didn't think were going to do amazing.
A Formula One commentator in the UK, sadly he's passed away now, but he used to say, anything can happen in Formula One, and it usually does, which I thought was a great expression. D here, by the way, he's pretty brave with his semi-final lineup, and sadly for him, he only has one hope left, and that may well be extinguished in a few hours. By the way, Vekic has held one game all. So he went for Rublev, Rafa, Felix, and Fritz, which I think is also pretty brave. I think it's pretty brave to have Rublev in the semi-final, irrespective of the fact that he's obviously going to be playing Djokovic today. He's been in, I think, there's Pam Shriver. He's been in six Grand Slam quarterfinals, and he's not won any of them. Most recently against Cilic, arguably the most painful of them all at the French Open, that went to a deciding set tiebreaker, losing to Cilic on clay. I think really is a very winnable match. Anyway, listen, one game all. Vekic did hold despite those 3 double faults. Those of you just joining us, by the way, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new. And by the way, don't forget to subscribe to Miles and his podcast, and also follow him on Twitter. Miles, tell us a bit about your podcast and your Twitter page.
Sure. So my podcast is called Tuned Into Tennis with Miles David. I'm the host. I've been doing it for about 3 years now. I just recently did some rebranding and switching of the name. So you may remember me from Missing the Point with Miles David, but now we're even more niched into Tuned Into Tennis. And I really just bring a bright, colorful, and passionate perspective to the sport. And I talk to a lot of fans that have either been in the sport for a long time, get to go to these tournaments live and in person, get their perspectives, kind of talk about what's happening in the culture of the sport and mix in a little bit of pop culture. And then on Twitter, we kind of just have a big old digital community fun party sometimes. I mean, we watch matches live. We utilize the Twitter Spaces to kind of talk through some of the big moments in matches live, and it's really fun. If you really want to follow and learn more about the Twitter Spaces, I'm also on Instagram and TikTok, all the same handle. It's Tuned Into Tennis, or you can just look for Miles David Tennis and something should pop up.
I just Googled Miles. I hope you're not upset by this. I Googled Miles David, and it's 15:30 on the Sabbath serve, by the way. I just Googled Miles David, and you didn't appear, but I did Google Miles David tennis, and there you were. Boom.
Boom! There we go. There we go. That's a start.
I've put a couple of links, by the way, in the chat. One to the Amazon link to your podcast, but also a link to your Twitter page. Yeah, of course, there's Twitter Spaces, by the way, where of course it's also an environment that Pam Shriver inhabits from time to time. I haven't seen her on Twitter Spaces for a while, but I know she's down under, and I knew it anyway because I think I saw her tweeting about it. But I've just seen her in the audience here for this match. So yeah, I'm guessing ESPN. I think, if I'm right, have not sent a crew over to Australia this year.
Not officially. They're lucky they have some correspondence, and Renee Stubbs, who who's from Australia, and then also Darren Cahill, who works for ESPN and is coaching Yannick Sinner, and then also Pam Shriver. I think they've done some interviews here and there, but there's been very few ESPN mics and ESPN trucks. Well, maybe there's trucks, but ESPN presence in the media of the Australian Open. It's been kind of hit or miss.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess they're trying to save a bit of money. But there we go. Listen, we've got a break point for Donna Vekic on the Sabalenka serve. I'll talk us through this, even though you're probably slightly ahead of me, Miles. When she goes down the tee and she aces. So that was a pretty short one to talk through.
Yeah.
So we're at deuce, 1 game all. I think that there will be. I am predicting Sabalenka to go through, and I am predicting her to win this tournament. But I am anticipating some trickier assignments still to come. In the semi-final, Linette. That's a. I don't want to show any disrespect to Magda de Linette, but that is a kind potential semi-final for either of these two players. But with me predicting Sabalenka, that makes things. It's a lot easier than playing Swiatek. Who else has she lost in semi-finals to?
Pliskova and Fernandez, which was also on paper somebody she should have beat. So.
On paper, yeah, but I just think the way that Fernandez was going through the draw.
She was incredible in that tournament. Incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of similar to Magda Linette, actually. Linette has had 4 wins over 4 different seeds, and Fernandez had something similar. So, I mean, could be history presenting a similar opportunity for Sabalenka.
Indeed, yeah. The only thing, and she's just saved another break point, by the way. The only thing I would say different to Fernandez is the run that she had may have come across seeds in a similar fashion, but the manner in which that she would rescue matches and being in tight third sets was actually a little bit different to Linette, because Linette has skittled over Garcia, for example, in straight sets, and Pliskova also today, relatively comfortably. I mean, the manner in which she beat Garcia was interesting because she was 3-love down, including a double break in that match a couple of days ago. And yet she came back to win that first set 7-6. And yeah, Garcia must have a lot of regrets about that.
I think she should be, turning and tossing in her sleep a little bit. I know I would. I mean, that's a testament to Magda Linette. I know we're not trying to, be too dismissive of her great run here, but I mean, she has been a player that hasn't had magnificent results throughout the tour, some WTA titles here and there, but she's super scrappy, and she also just had a gear change. I want to say at the top of the season, maybe a little bit towards the back half of 2022, she switched to Yannick's. So, which is the racket that Donna Vekic is now using. So maybe that's giving her some good energy and some different weight or something around her shots,
We've got a third break point here for Vekic as a result of a double fault from Sabalenka in just her second service game. She's already produced 3 double faults. Vekic, of course, also producing 3. In her entire quarterfinal, she produced 4 double faults. And she's got an excellent second serve in there, but it's not enough to win her the point automatically. Vekic on the defensive. Sabalenka should win the point from here, and she does with a nice forehand. She screams with delight. Yeah, so of course, we all remember Sabalenka's issues with double faults last year, in particular at this event a year ago, where she was often getting into double figures on the double fault stage. But this year it seems as though she's overcome that. She mentioned it as in a kind of a jokey fashion in her semi after her fourth round win over Bencic, and she produced just 4 double faults in that match in the entirety, and she's already got 3 on the board today. So maybe some anxiety there for her.
I think it's interesting the level of anxiety and stress that players kind of have within their own game these days. Because just kind of watching these two compete, it seems like they have tension with their own ideas and their own goals and their own ambitions on the sport. Instead of, which I think may help, I wish there was more tension between the actual players. Because if you simplify a little bit into just beating somebody that's across the court from you, you don't think about all those outside things that may be going into your mind, like, oh, if I win this, I get X amount of prize money, or I get X amount of ranking points, or this sponsor might be interested in me, or this bonus might be given to me because of my sponsor and their performance evaluations or something like that. If you narrow it down to just beating who's across from you on the day and maybe kind of putting some tension behind that, I feel like we get, maybe more interesting matches and less kind of, to be harsh a little bit, less choking and, just less anxiety about, your own game. Just go out there and try to beat the heck out of whoever's across the net from you. I bet it becomes way more simpler then.
Listen, something as well I think players can forget about and need to be reminded of, if you like, is you're feeling anxious, okay? You're concerned about, what your opponent might do to you. But sometimes it's always good to remember that your opponent may be feeling anxious and worried about, playing you. I remember in the by the way, we're at juice now on the Sabalenka serve as we enter the 8th minute. I remember in that break point, the first episode, I think it is, with Tomljanovic. She plays Badosa in the first round, and I think there's a comment that, for Tomljanovic, that's a really tough first round for her. She was unseeded, of course. This is a year ago, unfortunately. Funnily enough, both of those players part of the old breakpoint curse, because both of them were injured for this tournament. But I was thinking to myself, if I was talking to Tomljanovic, I'd be saying, listen, Badosa must be thinking, boy, what a tough first round I've got as a seeded player, top 10 player at the time, thinking, do they come much tougher than playing Tomljanovic in Australia in the first round? But anyway, but also won that match in straight sets, but sadly neither were at this tournament. Also, I did a show recently with a Georgian tennis player who's sadly much further down the food chain, if you like, in the tennis world. And she was talking to me about prize money. Sabalenka's held, by the way, for 2-1 as they take a break. And she was talking to me about how she did get nervous on a match point because she knew that there was $10,000 on the line or whatever.
Yep. I mean, I can only imagine what goes through your mind. Like somebody like Magdalene has never been this far. You're thinking about all those other things that may come with the win instead of just dealing with what's in front of you to actually accomplish the win. So I feel like Sabalenka has kind of had those moments on court, especially in those semifinals. Like, oh, I'm the girl that's ranked in the top 10 and I have this opportunity to be inside of a Grand Slam final or possibly win one. Something about that for as ambitious and kind of powerful and determined as she is, I think there may be something she could work through there to kind of figure out what kind of emotions really come up when she's on the brink of an opportunity, and just to kind of level out a little bit more and play the game that got her to that opportunity. I hope she can kind of find that in this match, although it's a real stop and start kind of scratchy beginning between both of them. It's not great tennis so far.
No, it isn't. By the way, talking of which, probably you didn't see it because it would have been on a very inconvenient hour for you. But I found the 2 men's matches yesterday a tough watch for very different reasons. First of all, there was the Sebi Korda match, and I guess it's fairly obvious why I found that a tough watch, in that Sebi was injured from somewhere in the second set when they were on serve, and the third set in particular, it was just 3 games, but it was really tricky to not just commentate on, but just to watch as well, because it was like, it was just a case of whether he would finish the match or not, and sadly he didn't. But also I found the Tsitsipas Lehecka a tough match, just because the level was pretty. And listen, it's because I have big ambitions, especially for Tsitsipas, who's extremely talented. But he did not play well. Lehecka, maybe the occasion got to him. Perhaps as well with Lehecka, there was the case of having a couple of tough previous matches with Cam Norrie and to a lesser extent Felix. But it was a tough watch because, people were asking me in the chat, how's Tsitsipas playing? How's the backhand going? How's the return going? And I'm going, the scoreboard looks fine. He's 2 sets to love up, but he's playing really badly.
He's not. He probably wasn't forced to maybe propel his level upward a little bit more. Like I could tell he was in the 5th set against Yannick Sinner. So maybe, that's a mixture of him, not accessing his highest level and then also kind of pulling off the pedal because he felt like he didn't need it, maybe.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah. I think as well, and that's a really good point because I do think your opponent, there's a reason that Alcaraz was involved in about 5 of the best matches of the year last year on the ATP side. But suddenly you're playing Alcaraz and he's going to make you do different things. And Sinner, of course, was unbelievable in that match. But also there's a reason why we watch Djokovic and Nadal sometimes and they're playing okay in the early rounds and they're playing okay against ex-opponent. You're thinking, well, they're going to have to raise their level when they play each other. And then suddenly they play sensationally against each other.
Yeah.
And equally, you sort of bring yourself down to the level of your opponent,
Sometimes, yeah. I think players, that's like a little bit of a phenomenon between some top players that they do that too often. Did Sabalenka make that shot? I'll let you talk about it, but it was a pretty
let me talk about it. I'm
interesting
just
shot.
behind. She's got 3 break points. Love 40. Here we go. Donna Vekic, where are you going to serve? You're going to go to the backhand of Sabalenka. I think, okay. Oh, hang on a sec. A drop shot. I think it does, yes. The fist pump suggests, though, and she has broken. But let me tell you now, I've not seen the replay, but that must have clipped the line by a whisker, that drop shot. It was an excellent drop shot, by the way.
Yeah, she cut the pace off of it really nicely, and that's not something she's known for. But I'm glad she's kind of, taking risk and trying to work that into her game. When you're up love 30 with 3 break points, that seems like a reasonable point to try something different and maybe throw your opponent off a little bit.
It hit the line a little bit more comfortably than I expected, but it certainly did hit the line. And she's 3-1 up with a break. Let's go back to the chat because I've missed a few comments here. Ghosty, by the way, came in with the most, what's the word? A very surprising entrance from Ghosty. Ghosty normally will come in all guns blazing, and he just comes in with a simple hello. But it doesn't take long for him to draw his firearm because he soon gets offended by the pink outfit of Vekic. It's obviously not for his taking. Also, a couple of comments on the Sabalenka serve. And what else we've got here? Who is Vekic's fashion guy? He needs to get fired. And I guess because Sabalenka has broken, he has already suggested that this is game, set, and match for the Belarusian. Well, let's see if that pans out. It's certainly a good start for her, obviously getting such an early break. I just posted, by the way, a link in the chat as well to an interview I did with Shapatova. I did touch on that earlier. And yeah, she was just talking about the anxiety she had at an earlier stage in her career when finance were a little bit tighter for her. I think she's ranked currently 493. Okay, Miles, I wasn't aware of that. She's been dropped by Nike.
Yeah, she has. Yeah. I think she's wearing the same brand as Jensen Brooksby. Uomo Sport. I can't recall it verbatim. I think she kind of has designed her own pieces within that line. But yeah, Nike. It seems as if Nike. She's not the only person. It seems as if Nike has taken a real hard look at who they were sponsoring or who their brand ambassadors were, and I think they did like some performance evaluations or. I think they said as much as, there were some performance expectations and then also match numbers that had to be met in order to be continuing on with their program. And I don't know if everybody met those numbers or met the metrics that they were looking for. So it seems as if Donna Vekic, they just parted ways. And sometimes that can kind of motivate a player, I think. It may have had a reason as to why she got back to her second major quarterfinal here. She might be thinking about that in her head, like, okay, well, this is a moment to kind of do or die and play better tennis.
She's got 3 breakback points here, by the way. Love 40 on the Sabalenka serve, but Sabalenka aces on the first one, so it's 15-40. Quite a lot of break points in this match so far, but so far just 1 break a serve in favor of Sabalenka. Yeah, Miles, would you? Ghost is there, joking. You say Nike, right?
Yeah, I say Nike. Yeah, I've always known it as Nike.
Yeah. Oh, nice, Brian. Brian joining us. Brian, I believe, is on vacation, so great that he's joining us. I don't know how his wife feels about that. Brian, by the way, is old school. He loves to join us on Facebook. Make sure you hit that like button, by the way, Brian. We need all the love we can get, left, right, and center, but especially on Facebook. But anyway, yeah, so Ghosty here referencing the fact that in the UK, of course, we say Nike. But I do believe, I am aware, he's at Disney, by the way. Yeah, that's right. I remember you saying last week. I am aware that I think Nike is actually the correct pronunciation.
Is Nike a German company? Or is that
No,
Adidas? Adidas is the
Adidas
German.
Adidas is German. Here's a fun fact for you about Adidas. It was begun by a Bavarian guy called Adi Dassler, hence Adidas, and his brother began Puma.
Oh wow!
Yeah, a bit of a fallout, bit of a family
doing?
feud.
How is Puma doing? I don't know who. Like, do
Puma's
they have
okay.
any
Puma's
athletes?
probably, listen, in the football world at least, Puma's sort of third or fourth. So it's, I mean, Adidas and Nike pretty much, or Nike in every sphere, sort of are first and second. As Vekic, by the way, gets it back on serve.
Yeah, some more shaky serving from Sabalenka. It has to be the moment that she's thinking of, or maybe she just didn't feel that great when she came out of her warm up, because her serve has looked really, really positive for the first 4 rounds. I mean, I even saw her get some safety, like really, pronating her wrist on the second serve and really getting top spin on that second serve very often in the tournament. So I'm surprised she's kind of reverting back to old bad habits. So maybe it is the moment getting to her. Hopefully she can kind of shake that off.
Ghosty, I wish you were here yesterday because I think I said Nike was from Ohio, but yeah, Oregon.
It's Oregon. I think their headquarters are in Portland.
Yeah, and he
Portland,
said so
Oregon,
in the chat just now. Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting my O's muddled up. Yeah, I said Ohio, but I'm sure I'm aware it's Oregon now, and I see it in the chat. Oh, I knew this was coming, Ghosty, because I knew. By the way, as soon as I said Puma. Yeah, I see. Yeah. As soon as I said Puma, I'm thinking, yeah, I know in the US. I'm fine with giving you Nike, by the way, not just because it's from the US, but actually also because I believe the correct pronunciation of what I believe is a Greek god is in fact Nike. And so I'm fine with that. But I do think that Puma and Puma is merely a slight difference in the way we pronounce words in the US. I believe that I would say attitude, and you may go a bit more towards attitude, maybe, Miles. It may vary in various parts of the US, of course, but the pronunciation of the U will vary. And Ghosty, all I'll say is, and I don't want to go all authoritarian on us here, but what language is it we're speaking? By the way, when I'm losing an argument, Miles, that's my backhand down the line, and I'm just going to hit the ball as hard as I can.
You got to break it open. You got to break the point open sometimes.
Yeah, right. By the way, Brian's getting very specific where in Oregon they are based. Brian, how's Disney World? Anyway, so we are at Love 15. Listen, Ghosty, by the way, let's get back to the tennis here. Ghosty, about 5 minutes ago, was going, well, that's game, set, and match in favor of Sabalenka. You should be eating some humble pie, Ghosty, because we're back on serve. Do you say humble pie, Miles, in the US?
Yeah, I've heard that phrase before. I personally don't have it in my back pocket to use all the time, but I've heard it.
Yeah, that's a drop shot, I think. 15 all, Vekic serving. Must be feeling much better than she was earlier on. Thanks for letting me have Puma there, by the way, Ghosty. You refused to add that. Yeah, American. By the way, I'm not joking. As a teenager, I used to be much more passionate about British spelling and stuff. Now I couldn't give a flying proverbial. I don't really care.
I love that word, by the way, proverbial. I don't think anybody else uses it the way you do, actually.
Well, I know. I think that's consecutive days there. I do go in. I'm a bit streaky. Who's a tennis player who's really streaky? Cilic.
Petra Kvitova.
Yeah, Kvitova. I'm a bit streaky with vocabulary. I'll start using words like I used discernible about 3 times earlier today, and I've used proverbial a couple of times in the last couple of days. But then it may just disappear for 6 months, and then you're like, "Where's that word that John used to use?" A bit like Kvitova or Marin Cilic.
It looks like Vekic is up to 7 double faults in this match already, and we've
7, and she's 15-40 on my screen as well.
We're in the 6th game of the match. That's quite a lot, early on.
1540, Donna Vekic, and that's clipped the net, I believe. I think I even saw that one for once. So it's still a first serve for her. 2-3, 1540.
Oh, I finally see Pammy. Pammy looks great.
Yeah.
Pam looks great.
Second time. There's a winner there for Vekic. Yeah, she's there. Yeah, I saw her earlier. There she is, yeah. I'm not sure who that is she's next to.
I would imagine it's some more of Donna Vekic's camp, I guess, you know?
Yes. She may well be with Vekic's camp. It looked campy, if that makes sense. It looked like a camp that she was in. Yeah. Sometimes there's, they're dressed. It's like, I mean, listen, tennis fans tend to be, that's a good serve as well, so it's juice. There are, but it's not just, well dressed. It's not just sportily dressed. There's just an authority sort of feel to the way a coach may be dressed compared to others. And
I feel what you mean. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm struggling to get it out there, but
no, I get exactly what you mean. Yeah. Sometimes if the player and the coach are wearing the exact same or the shirts from the same kit or brand, you can be like, oh yeah, that's the coach. Sometimes if they're a little bit more casually dressed, you can say that's a loved one, significant other, or something like that. So.
You know what I mean. By the way, from 2 break points, Vekic has won 3 points in a row, and she now has a game point. Janie, I can see, is back with us as well. I saw a question from Brian a minute ago asking where you're from, but I think we've already addressed that. Atlanta, Georgia. By the way, of course, Atlanta had the Olympics '96. Are you old enough to remember that, Miles?
Yes, I was born in '93, so I don't, it's not like the back of my hand memory, but I do remember because I live here. And unfortunately, they tore down the actual tennis stadium / arena that they held it in. It housed maybe like a couple of ATP, maybe WTA events for a couple of years afterwards, but I think it was demolished in 2016. So, but there's still a lot of evidence from the Olympics and stuff in Atlanta.
Yeah. I remember that Olympics for the gold shiny shoes of Johnson, the 400-meter runner, who had a unique style to his running, but also was posting unique times. I believe he has now lost both his 200 and his 400-meter world records, but they were pretty sensational at the time. But the flash cameras as well was a point. So it's 96. It would have been the middle of the night in the UK, but it was also nighttime in Atlanta as he's running around the track. And that was actually quite a unique thing. It was just before sort of the smartphone thing kind of took off, or a little bit before that. And just seeing all these flash bulbs just flying off around the stadium was
that was the year Davenport won women's gold in singles. And then did Agassi win? No, 1996 wasn't the year Agassi won gold, was it?
Could have been. I mean, listen, he was peaking around then, so
maybe.
Let's have a look. Agassi gold. Olympics.
I know some of the 90s were definitely not kind to him, but there was a portion where the 90s were.
92, he won his first. What do you call it? Won his only Wimbledon, I should say. I'm still looking actually, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's 96. I can see him holding his gold medal here, and he's no longer got the hair, and he had the hair in 92.
So it's looking more and more like 96.
Could well have been, unless it was 2000. Let's have a look. Yeah, 96.
Yeah, look at my memory is good. Look at that.
Not so bad, yeah. Donna Vekic has a game point back to the present. 2-3, she's behind. It's a sort of a miss-hit return, but then she doesn't take advantage of that, and it's back to deuce. This game, by the way, feels like it's been going on since 1996.
A lot of their games have been long. Some of them have gotten either over or just under that 8-minute mark, which is pretty long for a game.
Brian, they're reminding us of who he beat. Sergei Bugero, was that his name? I'm just trying to remember, Brian. Yep, she did indeed, Ghosty. She did put that backhand wide. Oh, I see. He's using the word sprayed because I think he suggested that Donna Vekic could be an extra hairspray. I'm not quite sure what that's all about. But nevertheless, anyway, we are now at advantage to Vekic. So it's a game point as well. This game must be a good 10 minutes in. Hi, Stephen. Hello, all. Back again in the wee hours of the morning. Yeah, because he's. Can you guess where he's from the way he's talking there, Miles? Because I can.
Hello, all back up again in wee hours of morning. Had some really horrible news this morning, so just hoping tennis can take my mind of it. I hope it does. I hope our conversation does do that. Where is he from? From how he's speaking? Wee hours of the
Wee
morning.
hours is the key.
Scotland?
Yeah, very good.
Wait, was that right?
Yeah.
Oh wow! Yay! Look at that.
3-3, by the way, and yeah, hopefully, Stephen, we can help with that. I must admit, I just read the beginning of the message, and I actually did know Stephen was in Scotland because I think he mentioned it yesterday. But then seeing him say "wee hours" as well reminded me of that. And yeah, she's Pam Shriver is very much in the Vekic camp there, as we see her celebrating her get back to 3 games all. Oh, okay. That was an unintended pun regarding spraying the backhand wide. Okay.
I don't know if your feed is showing it. Are you watching on ESPN? Or
I'm watching on Eurosport, but it's to be honest with you, it's because I'm streaming as opposed to cable, if that makes sense. If I was watching on a regular television set in the year 2000 or whatever, or even 1996, I'd be actually watching it slightly ahead of time. But because I'm guessing you're watching it on your TV, watching it through your aerial or whatever, I'm guessing. I don't know.
No, I'm streaming it on ESPN Plus too, so it's not coming from a cable box. But they quickly cut to, I think it was a Legends doubles match, and I think Radwanska hit an underarm serve, and they just had a whole hoot about it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And she had an underarm ace serve. Excuse me, to be more specific.
Oh, an underarm ace.
Yeah, that's why they cut to it. I think they were trying to. If I know ESPN the way I know, they probably were making fun of one of the girls' serves or poking fun, and then probably said maybe they should try an underhand serve, and they quickly cut to evidence of that. Yep, that sounds about right.
So listen, some momentum from Sabalenka's sails certainly been lost from 3-1 up to 3-all, but also because that last service game for Vekic, as we see another double fault from Sabalenka. Was that a double fault or was that? Yeah, I think it was a double fault. I'm not sure. It was either double fault or. But anyway, yeah, back to Pam Shriver. We're getting a lot of Pam's getting a lot of airtime today.
Oh, they love Pam. The people, the ESPN trucks and producers must know that she's now tied to Vekic, and this is an important moment in both of their kind of partnerships career. So
I didn't know she was tied to Vekic. Did you?
Yeah, well, actually, I knew because of Twitter Spaces.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's pretty active on there. Not so much in the past couple of weeks because obviously she's been prepping for the Australian Open in Melbourne. But yeah, she said she kind of just stumbled into it. It wasn't something that either player were like, going on a mission to try to find a coach or find a pupil to coach. It kind of just happened because Pam took some time off and watched the San Diego match because she doesn't live too far from there. And then it just kind of spiraled into, hey, why don't you try doing this a little bit more full time? So that's where they are.
Great return there from Vekic, by the way. And we are at 15:30 on the Sabalenka serve. Hits the first serve wide. Oh, the chat is fairly lively today, which is great to see. Okay, backhand return from Vekic, forehand Sabalenka. She's a bit off balance there. And that's an excellent drop shot from Vekic, just at the right time. I don't know if she was reacting to the fact that Sabalenka was kind of off balance after her forehand, but if she was, it was very quick thinking from Donna and drop shot. And by the way, about 10 minutes ago, we had who did we have? We had Ghosty in the live chat saying game set match. This is all over, and we could be looking at a real swing in this momentum here if Vekic breaks. 15:40. Sabalenka, where are you going with the serve? You're going to the forehand. It's an excellent return from Vekic, although maybe that was lacking a bit of depth. And they're very much in the rally here. Forehand Vekic to the forehand of Sabalenka. Sabalenka goes big, and it's big enough to force the situation. It's 30-40.
Breakpoint number 2. Let's see how Sabalenka responds to this, because I'm hoping, obviously, as an athlete of her level, she knew it wasn't going to be easy. But I don't know if she thought it would be this tense, especially from some of the problems coming from her own game. At least maybe that's me. I guess didn't think she'd have such an issue with her serve going into this match, because it felt like she had kind of solved the riddle a little bit with her serve.
Yeah. As she gets an ace, does she there to save the second one? She does, but she doesn't celebrate it at all. Earlier on I think Vekic is asking to see this again, but of course we do know that that's well, it looked like
is what it is. Yeah,
it looked like that's what she was doing, but But anyway, it's 6 aces. 6 aces for Sabalenka, though. I mean, conversely, is a good start in terms of serves. But then she's had plenty of them because there's been so many break points. Okay, we are into the rally here on the backhand for Sabalenka. It feels like she's in charge of this rally, but that doesn't mean anything. She can easily do an unforced error. It's a bit short there from Sabalenka. And as a result of the short forehand, Vekic goes deep with hers and forces the error, and it's advantage Vekic, and it's a break point for her once again. I have no idea. We've had I think 2 breaks of serve, I believe, but we've had dozens of break points from both sides. So advantage to Vekic, break point number 3 in this game alone. Sabalenka will be desperate for a first serve. Goes long. So it's going to be a second serve for Vekic to look at here. By the way, I'm flexing I'm toying with the idea, and I'm using it a bit, David, of standing up sometimes when commentating.
It helps. I can only imagine they do it in the booth, so I would imagine.
When watching, and I'm particularly anxious, I certainly am standing up. I imagine you being quite a cool cucumber. By the way, it's back to Deuce again. When you're watching, even if you have a vested interest in one player or the other, I still imagine you sort of being fairly chilled on the sofa.
I can be, and I can be quite the opposite sometimes. It just depends.
My anxiety is extremely clear. As I say, I'm sort of pacing up and down sometimes. Deuce, anyway, Sabalenka, she's not pacing up and down just yet. Forehand for Sabalenka goes pretty big. They're now on the backhand, and she's got a nice winner down the line there. So she brings up game point. I keep saying it, but this will feel like a big hole for Sabalenka. But there's been so many holes in this match that feel like big holes that perhaps they dilute each other a bit.
Yeah, I mean, the breaks and the long games in this matchup definitely kind of are baked into why the momentum is what it is. It kind of feels like they both are grasping at trying to grab the momentum, but they're kind of fighting each other off at the same time. It's tense, but it's good,
Yeah. Is that a hold? No, it's not. It's deuce. By the way, I was at the US Open last year. I think you were there too, right? On the middle Saturday?
Yes. Yep, I was. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was there for the sort of latter stages, and for Sabalenka's quarterfinal, which was against Pliskova, I was shouting out Sabadabadoo. So if anybody tuned into that match and heard Sabadabadoo being screamed out, that was me. Probably you didn't, because I was fairly high up in the stadium, but there we go. Anyway, we're into a rally here, and it's won by Sabalenka, and I think I'm probably not doing that rally justice, because there was plenty of running around, and it ended up being Sabalenka chasing down a ball, and she managed to get a decent racket on it. That time, probably the drop shot was just a little too lengthy, if you know what I mean, and Sabalenka took advantage of that, and it's now game point for her once more.
Another almost 8-minute game in this set. This is going to be a long set, and we're still 7 games into it now.
Yeah, right. I mean, we are exactly 7 games, just about on the verge of 7 games into it. See how this serve goes. Yeah, 7 games, as you say, 4-3. And it feels like, what time did we start? Probably a good half an hour ago, I'd say.
Almost an hour, actually.
Looks wow.
Yeah, I know. It's been a long, arduous kind of set with some long games. Yeah.
47 minutes for 7 games. So 7 sixes are 42, let's say. Let's include breaks. So each game has been about 6 minutes long.
Yep. That's long.
The temperature, by the way, for the previous match was a bit more comfortable at about 23 degrees, but I did notice that it had gone up a bit to about late 20s, so that may have an effect on the match day. I just saw Sabalenka taking some ice as we have a quick look at Shelton warming up for his quarterfinal against Tommy Paul. Have you either got a preference or prediction for the Shelton-Tommy Paul match?
I actually don't have a preference. I think it would be amazing for both of them. It's going to be a first major Grand Slam semifinal if either of them, or when either of them wins. I think it'll be a wonderful story. ESPN has already kind of picked up traction on Ben Shelton here. I'm not sure if Tommy Paul played collegiately in the United States, but we know for sure that Ben Shelton did. His dad is the coach of the Florida Gators down here at Florida or University of Florida. So ESPN's kind of picking up on that collegiate and new kind of spur of the moment player that pops through at a Grand Slam. So I think it would be nice if he can continue that run, but also Tommy Paul has been putting in the work for the past couple of years to kind of get to this moment. So if he wins, I'll be happy for him too.
Yep, I understand that entirely. I mean, Ben Shelton, second Grand Slam, and he's already in a quarterfinal.
First time on a plane to a different country. First time.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, great. I'm really pleased in many respects for him. The thing was with Shelton, and there's a few things in the live chat I will address shortly. But the thing with Shelton was I saw him do really well prior to the US Open, and as a result, not big things, but I think I had him getting to the second or third round where I thought he might prove a bit problematic for Medvedev. I think they were in the same part of the draw. But he went out first round. And then as a result, I thought, John, let him be in Australia, first time out of the country, blah, 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 second Grand Slam. Vekic, by the way, has just double faulted again.
He's up to 8. Yeah, that's not
8 double faults for Vekic now.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, I see that. Yeah, 8 double faults now for Vekic already. And we're not even at the end of the first set. But anyway, so yeah, I thought I'll let him be. He's second Grand Slam and all that, and as a result, I paid the price because he's in the quarterfinals, and I did not see that coming. Just a few things in the live chat. We're at love 15 on the Vekic serve right now. Something about honey juices. I only had one this year, or as it was last year, I guess now.
I love the U.S. Open, but they're a tad bit overrated. Just a tad.
Yeah, the thing was, I think when you're a newbie, as I was in 2016 to the event. I actually wasn't aware of the what's the word, the reputation and the famousness, if that is a word, which it probably isn't, of these fame. Maybe I was going to say the notoriety, but maybe notoriety has a negative connotation. I'm not sure, but you know what I'm getting at. And honey juice, I wasn't aware of the reputation of these honey juices, and I had a few in 2016, and I thought they were quite nice. So much so that I actually ended up going for a snooze. I have been known to do that before at majors, and
same. I think I went to sleep during a Kyrgios match at the U.S. Open in 2021. Funny how that works, right?
Indeed, yeah. I fell asleep as well in Australia during Federer Tommy Haas in 06 in that day I was telling you about the other day. And I fell asleep at 2 sets to love for Federer, and I woke up and it was 2 sets all. So there you go. It looked like Federer. Federer probably had a snooze as well that day, but it probably wasn't honey juices that he was drinking, not least because we were in Australia, but also because he was in the middle of a tennis match. Anyway, so honey juices, but this year I only had one, and I would subscribe to the notion that they are a little bit overrated and also certainly overpriced.
Everything at that facility is overpriced.
And it got even worse for me this year, bearing in mind the euros are particularly weak compared to the dollar right now. But let's not go down that avenue. Sabad Abadou here, Ghosty there, responding to what I said. When Aryna takes the Aussie throne in a couple of days, I can't promise you won't be sent to the gulags. Nice. Stephen here, by the way. Yeah, we did address this earlier, but I have no problem in reminding everybody again that both Miles and I have Sabalenka to win the tournament.
Yep. That's a good one, Stephen. Yeah. Stephen, I wonder who you have to win. If you haven't picked anybody yet, who do you think is going to win out of these remaining women in the draw? I'm interested to see who people think is going to win this title at this point.
Sabalenka has a break point here on the Vekic serve, but I've also posted a poll on YouTube just for today's match between Sabalenka and Vekic to see who would win. I tend to take that down when one player is significantly in front of each other, and perhaps I should be taking it down now because Sabalenka has broken and leads 5-3, so she will be serving for it. I'll probably leave it up for another minute or two because the way this match is going, anything could happen as we see Billie Jean King backstage. I don't know what feed you're getting, I think some of our info is probably the same, but I'm not sure if you got to see Billie Jean King as well.
No, I didn't. Unfortunately, ESPN doesn't have that magnificent level of coverage.
Anyway, some comments there on Shelton and Tommy Paul. Tommy Paul was going to Georgia, but someone told me he didn't actually pay, turned pro instead. And it looks like Ghosty's big on Shelton. So,
okay.
Yeah. Stephen there says he's pulling for Rublev. And by the way, Stephen's sort of saying, sorry, I'm asking this question now and blah, blah, blah. But completely understandable, Stephen, because it is 3 a.m. where you are. So I think it's okay. We can forgive you for missing the first hour or so of our coverage today on this match, at least. Sabalenka goes up 15 love. She's not missing anything right now. Well, she's missing talking tennis.
Which is a really, really good ticket in town, if you ask me. That's what I think.
Indeed. Ghosty met Billie Jean King once at Indian Wells. I have not met Billie Jean King. Who have I met in the tennis world? I mean, listen, there's always sort of this gray area between meeting and seeing. I mean, I've brushed shoulders with Goran, for example, and I've been at press conferences and stuff like that, but that's not really meeting. Football. And listen, here's the line between meeting and not meeting. By the way, it's 15 all on the Sabalenka serve. I shook Pele's hand in Berlin about 17 years ago now. It was on the eve of the World Cup final 06. I think that counts as meeting, even if it's just saying hello and shaking their hand. You could actually have a full-on conversation in a press conference, and that's not really meeting them. But actually, I'm trying to think if I've met. And that's a shank to a turn, so it's 30-15. I'm trying to think if I've met anyone. I mean, I haven't even met, like, I wouldn't say I've met Pam Shriver. We've interacted many a times, including on this channel a couple of times, but, you know, it's on a camera. So
I watched the interview. I watched the interview you did with Pam talking about Serena and Tomjanovic's match, I believe, at the U.S. Open. That was a good one. Really good one.
Yeah. How tall am I? Oh, that's a good point, Ghosty. How tall am I to brush shoulders? Well, maybe it was the top of my head that was brushing his shoulders because I'm a few inches shorter than he is. Miles, have you met anyone big in the tennis world?
I agree with some of your thought process about having met, but I did briefly talk to Pam Shriver actually at the U.S. Open. We got a selfie, I'm taller than Pam Shriver. I'm 6'5", so that was nice. She didn't realize that I was so tall.
I didn't realize you were so tall, Miles.
Yeah. I'm tall. My dad's pretty tall. I've taken a picture with Sam Stosur also at that U.S. Open, and I met Catherine Whitaker at the U.S. Open as well. Yeah. So I've met some good people.
Yeah, from the tennis podcast. Yeah, I have met Catherine too, and I've met David as well. I met them both at Wimbledon last year, and they probably don't remember me, but we've got a match. We've got a match point. We've got a break point. Sorry, anything but for Vekic here. So I'm going to keep that poll alive that I've got on YouTube. So get voting in that whether you think Vekic or Sabalenka is going to win. If Sabalenka does finally manage to close this out, I'll probably close the poll as well. But listen, I'm going to talk us through this point because it's 30-40 on the Sabalenka serve. And she goes down the tee, but she goes long. So it's going to be a second serve for Vekic to look at here. So there is certainly an opportunity for her to break back here. She's pretty deep, by the way, for this return of serve on bearing in mind the second serve. She goes for the forehand. Pretty decent return. Goes for the forehand again. Is that a winner? No, it's not. She goes wide. Deuce.
The Croatian fans are on the edge of their seats. There's quite a few of them. I don't know if they're showing it in your feed, but there's a huge brigade of Croatian fans that are really in this match.
Croatians, not quite as well known as the Greek population in Australia, and in particular in Melbourne, but there's plenty of Croatians in Australia. There was a player, I'm trying to think who it is now. There's quite a few football players that have turned out for the Australian national team. Of course, Tomjanovic, I believe, as well. Does she have Croatian background?
So, I believe she does, yeah.
Yeah, quite a lot of Australians do have Croatian blood. Italians as well, a huge Italian contingent in Australia. Christian Vieri, funnily enough, a striker for the Italian national team. I believe when he speaks English, he has an Australian accent. Either he was born in Australia or spent a long time growing up there. Anyway, it's set point Sabalenka. Where are you going with this? I'll tell you where you're going. You're going into the net. That's where you're going. It's going to be a second serve. I'm glad you smiled there, David. I call you David then. Sorry, David Miles, David. Anyway, let's see where she goes with the second serve there. That one clips the net, but lands in. She smiles because she knows how lucky she is. Because the reason I pause is it clipped the net and it must have just landed in. Vekic is not smiling. Set point here, Sabalenka. Second serve. Where are you going? You're going to the backhand. Oh, what a backhand return, Donna Vekic.
It
Deuce. Now
stunned
she's running.
Sabalenka. It stunned her. She barely even took a step for it.
Yeah, indeed. So, so there is a huge Croatian contingent as well in Australia. I had a Croatian taxi driver once in Sydney, and I was meeting someone to pick up a ticket for a rugby match. And I said to the taxi driver, I said, can you take me to the Holiday Inn in Darling Harbour in Sydney? Darling Harbour is sort of the second most well-known harbour, if you like, in Sydney. It's not nowhere near as well-known as the main one where the bridge is, etc. But anyway, and he said to me, the taxi driver said, there's no Holiday Inn in Darling Harbour, at which point I was panicking a bit because I'd already paid for said ticket. And we got to Darling Harbour, and there was the biggest Holiday Inn you've ever seen in your life. So I don't know what that taxi driver was on, but he needs to brush up on his knowledge of Sydney and where the Holiday Inn is or was, because that was 2003. So that's 20 years ago now. Anyway, Sydney taxi drivers aside, back to the match. Set point Sabalenka, 5-3.
Interesting point.
Say again?
Interesting point, you'll see.
All right, here we go. What's she going to do with the smash? Doesn't put it away. Oh, it's interesting. She wins the point, but it whacks Vekic, I believe, on the shoulder, on the head. Unfortunate. But Sabalenka wins that 6-3 in exactly an hour.
Yeah, tough and tight 6-3 set that goes over an hour. And that was interesting, intense and tight. And kind of, I felt some of the tension that I was looking for in matches. I don't think they have like any kind of bad blood or history between each other, but I think they're both trying to fight the nerves to get to a semifinal, and they probably know who's waiting in the semifinal. And like you said earlier, that's a kind of draw, so.
Indeed. Let's go to back to YouTube. I'm going to close that poll now. So you've got about 15-20 seconds in which to vote before I close it. And you've got a huge advantage, of course, should you vote now, because Sabalenka has won that first set. Let's have a quick look to see what the vote. It had 61% for Sabalenka. That surprises me that only 61% of our audience thought that Sabalenka would win. I would have thought it'd be a bit more convincing than that, but maybe there's quite a lot of love for Vekic in the chat. But she is a set down now. And I think for Vekic being the second favorite, you'd think second favorite. So you're too place, but being the second favorite sounds pretty good. But until you find out there's only in this particular race, but no love lost. Yeah, do you think there is a bit of beef between the players, or just?
Vekic feels like, to me, just from what I've seen on social media, and I'm not trying to, grab too much from that, but she seems like she has a very established cohort of friends that are on tour, and Sabalenka isn't usually who I see her pictured with too often, or kind of collaborating together in the Instagram comments or Twitter comments, something like that. But maybe there's something that we haven't seen before, way back from junior days. Sometimes things are settled or started in those junior ranks. But maybe, who knows? Actually, you know what? I feel like Sabalenka would actually say something that alluded to it if she won in the press conference, but there hasn't been any evidence of that. So maybe we're just all making this up.
Yeah, I saw a tweet earlier of what appeared to be an exchange at the net being a bit frosty between Sabalenka and Vekic, but actually, despite the tweet suggesting otherwise, it actually wasn't Sabalenka and her. But by the way, I saw somebody asking in the chat about if that hit, if the ball hit Vekic, and yes, it did. Yeah, I couldn't quite see what part of the body it hit her, but the smash from Sabalenka ends up striking Vekic, unfortunately. But more importantly for both players is that Sabalenka's won that first set. And I just feel as though, I do agree that, of course, that was a super tight set with break points galore. I believe that Vekic had a total of 10 break points in that first set, but was unable to take 9 of them. And therefore, Sabalenka wins. I think she had 5 break points, Sabalenka, and she took advantage of 2 of those. So she wins what was a pretty nervy set from both players, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And but there were some gems, some high quality moments, some lovely drop shots from both players. And now, because as I say, Vekic was the outsider of the two going into this match, and also seeing the way that first set went, the opportunities that Vekic had. I do wonder if now that being decisive in terms of this match. Let's see. Can you see a way back for Vekic?
I do. I mean, she is playing Sabalenka. Sabalenka is not a stranger to kind of going walkabout. It could happen. It could definitely happen. I think Vekic is definitely going to have to level up her play and kind of do away with some of those double faults, because there's no way you're going to really take advantage of anybody's drop and play if you're the person giving away free points. So if she kind of finds her rhythm on serve, she could definitely start asking Sabalenka some different questions on return. So it'll be interesting to see. I still think Sabalenka can get through it in straights.
Yeah, Vekic will serve first here at the beginning of this second set.
Someone just asked, what is that thing? What is that little vacuum thing next to their benches? It just looks like it's providing cooler air for them. The mixture of cool air and then the overhang above them, probably just to keep them cooler and not overheat in the Australia sun. So I'm assuming that's what that is.
Just seeing Jessica Pegula backstage talking to Billie Jean King. I see Pegula's coach there. There's a few smiles all around. So
I hope she got a good night's rest. I hope she did, because she didn't look too great in that match against Azarenka.
She didn't look too happy, that's for sure.
She's usually much more even keel, and she was pretty aggravated like 10 minutes into that match,
Absolutely, very early on. I mean, I know she went to break down, but she was agitated early on. I think she was particularly agitated with the court conditions. They had the roof closed because I think there was some rain in the air yesterday.
It had rained earlier than that, because it rained during the Ostapenko and Rybakina match, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think you had a 10-minute break during that match while they closed the roof, right?
It was almost 20, I believe. I think I remember seeing that, like, time between points. It was definitely a lengthy break as far as
well
tennis
done
goes.
For getting through that. That can always be a tricky moment as a commentator. And I think I was taking the trash out as well. So I may well have not been able to provide you stuff with entertainment on screen. So well done for getting through that. But back to Pegula. Yeah, she was agitated with... I think she was talking about the speed of the court being so slow. She'd obviously, done very well in Sydney just before the tournament began. She'd also done really well in outdoor conditions, if you like, until yesterday's match. And perhaps that did play a role. But then it's 6-4, 6-1. It's tricky to sort of say too much about that in that respect, because Azarenka did win very easily, as it turned out, in the end. Very easily is probably a bit of an exaggeration. It felt much more competitive than 6-4, 6-1, to be fair. But I have got something to say regarding the vacuum thing. Yeah, it is absolutely to keep cool. I remember very well Rafa in the Shapovalov match last year, sets 4 and 5. I remember him calling for the trainer or the physio and thinking, oh dear, what's going on here? Because normally when they call for a physio, it's a bit more serious. But as it turned out, it just seemed like the heat was really getting to him. And he was constantly blowing the cool air, if you like, onto his face. And I do think today that we're seeing a lot more ice for Sabalenka and a lot more cool air. So
I haven't seen too much of that utilized throughout the tournament. So maybe it's just getting a little bit warmer out there.
Yeah, I think that may well have been Jane in that Shapovalov match. I'm not sure. But missed opportunity for Pegula. I would agree with that, but she'll be back. Ghosty's not a fan of Pegula, by the way. He's very much on the Azarenka train, and anyone who isn't Pegula, I think he's not a fan.
Ghosty, that's so interesting that you're not a fan of Pegula. She seems like somebody, not to diminish her to a food item, but she kind of seems like plain white bread a little bit. I mean, at least on surface level, there's nothing that brings me or draws me super into her, and there's nothing that really makes me stay away from her. So it's interesting that you have a solid preference.
Yeah. Plain white bread's a good one. I mean, pretty much like a sandwich. I mean, who can dislike a sandwich? I mean, it all depends on what.
Yeah. Who's never had a sandwich?
I mean, it's a sandwich. Depends on what you put in it. But my father, by the way, doesn't like pizza, which is rather odd.
There are people in the world that don't like pizza. I get it. I mean, maybe it's a combination of like the sauce and the toppings along on top of the bread. Maybe that's just not a good combination.
First pizza arrived in New York after the Second World War, by the way. So until 1945, 46, There was no such thing as, if you said to someone in New York in 1945, 46, you said, oh, I'd love a bit of pizza. They probably wouldn't even know what you were talking about.
Oh, wow. I think my grandfather was born in 1940 something. He probably doesn't know life. He probably knows a certain sector of life without pizza. That's interesting.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah, indeed. There you go. That's the kind of knowledge people tune into to Talking Tennis for, or tuned into tennis as well.
Yeah.
Miles's pod. Listen, it is what are we at now on the Vekic survey? It's 15-all. They're back underway. Some white bread comments coming in here. Anyway, I think Ghosty's dislike for Pegula is because of her fortunate background, let's say, in terms of the billionaire father, etc. I think that's where it stems from, but maybe Ghosty can elaborate. I don't really know lots about the story, but yeah, I agree. Pegula, for me, neither here nor there. Doesn't bother me when she wins. Doesn't bother me when she loses. I guess if she was in a Grand Slam final against somebody who'd won 5 Grand Slams before and she'd won none, I'd probably feel a bit more inclined towards Pegula. But yeah. So Pegula,
I was hoping.
I was probably. But it's a quarterfinal, so it's difficult to get too invested.
I was like 51-49 about that match. Azarenka has been, like I said previously on this broadcast, that I've known Azarenka as a tennis player since 2007. So she's just been in my ecosystem of tennis. And then Pegula, I kind of felt like, she had a really good season in 2022. Why not accomplish that in 2023, or would accomplish even more in 2023 with a semi or a final, So.
Brandon, I had to read this 2 or 3 times before I got it, but I get it now. Venice taking Vekic taking a Tsitsipas. Surprised Sabalenka didn't say anything. Well, there are a couple of things. First of all, it took me a while, but now I know what you mean, because she took a very lengthy break at the end of that first set. She also returned to the court with what appeared to be a handbag, albeit a large handbag, rather than what you would associate as being a sports bag. But anyway,
that's the Maria Sharapova in her. Yeah.
Sabalenka did look a bit annoyed. I will say that. She was when she returned to the court, and this is an example. Not only did she look annoyed, when Vekic returned to the court just with her bag, so she's got to walk across the court and dump it. Sabalenka is already pacing up and down, ready to return serve, knowing full well it's going to be another 60 seconds before she has to do so.
I think it might be her just wanting to keep warm, especially after sitting down after already sitting down on a change of ends after the set is over with. I don't know. Sabalenka can just get pretty. By her own admission, she can get a little crazy out there.
Yeah. Funnily enough, actually, it's a good point, because Andy Murray was annoyed with Tsitsipas for what he did in that particular match with the lengthy bathroom break, but he was also annoyed in a way, partly himself, because he feels as though he got a bit stiff during that moment. And for those of you not aware what we're talking about, Tsitsipas took a double fault from Vekic, meaning deuce, another one. Tsitsipas took I'm going to say 10-minute, but it could have been longer, could have been 12-minute bathroom break at the end of a set. I think it may have been 2 sets to love to Murray at the time, but whatever. It was a 5-setter. And at one point, Tsitsipas, that's 10 double faults for Vekic. At one point, Tsitsipas takes a 10-minute bathroom break. And certainly Andy Murray, but certain parts of the tennis world were outraged. And Tsitsipas goes on to win the match, which probably just adds to that feeling of annoyance. Sabalenka now has a break point. 10 double faults from the racket of Donna Vekic today after just over 1 set. That is a lot.
Very.
She's going to have to cut that down if she's going to get back into this match.
She kind of reminds me, and I've said this before, she kind of reminds me of Nicole Vidasova so much. And I love Nicole Vidasova. They both have Yonex rackets, blonde, similar stroke production. And there was a moment when Vidasova had the yips in her career too. But I haven't associated yips with Vekic yet. So maybe I don't think she's had anywhere close to this amount of double faults in any of her previous matches. Maybe. I haven't paid too much attention, just kind of have seen her name going through the draw. So that's interesting that she's struggling so mightily from the service line today.
Yeah, indeed. Break points 1, 2 from 6 for Sabalenka. 1 from 10 for Vekic, 10 being the number of the day.
Right.
Deuce, second serve. Gets it in. Forehand, good depth on that forehand from Vekic, but equally good depth from Sabalenka, and it helps her win the point. Advantage to her. Break point again.
Yeah, she's not even getting first serves in. Like, even over the net, I think that's the most concerning point. I think most tennis coaches would say if you're going to double fault or if you're going to miss your serve, at the very least, miss it long. If you hit the net, there's absolutely no chance you're going to win that point. It's just setting you up for failure. So she's missing a lot of her things in the net, which is even more concerning.
Yeah, indeed. Sabalenka on the return, and she smashed it, and she's won the game, won the point, and yeah, she's up a break and up a set and a break. I mean, the good news for Vekic is that she is getting lots of chances to break. So it's not terminal, if you like. It's not quite being a breakdown to John Isner on grass.
I wonder how John Isner's doing. I think he lost first round of this tournament to Manarino. I wonder if he's doing,
yeah, I think he did. Yeah.
I wonder if he's contemplating, the progression of his career at this point, because he hasn't really been a factor. And on top of that, there's some real legitimate American men kind of, rising above him in the ranks. So I wonder if he kind of feels like, well, I've done my job to keep American men's tennis relevant.
Okay, 1-love Sabalenka. 6-3, of course, winning the first set.
Brandon said in the chat, I love Sabby, but I feel like she always has the potential to implode. And that is definitely part of the Sabalenka viewing experience, I think. when you watch her, she could be playing beautifully, but you always know it'll take maybe 1 or 2 points to kind of just see things start to unravel in her game. But hopefully she stays steady in this match.
Love 15, so a good start for Vekic as she tries to get back into this match. Yes. Let's have a quick look at the chat. I haven't had a look for a little while. I saw that comment from Brandon. Yeah. Yeah, you do have that feeling. I just wonder with Sabby, though, whether it's implosion is one word. I think it's more when it gets tight. I'm thinking Grand Slam semifinals, third sets, ego up a break, that kind of moment, or semifinals like you mentioned with Fernandez. Was that 2 or 3 sets against Fernandez in 2021?
3.
Yeah. So it's kind of a bit like that with Sabo. I just think a quarterfinal where she's up a set and a break should be okay for her against a player I would expect her to beat as well.
And the thing about this matchup, Vekic is not going to be a person with a play style to kind of just hanker down and get balls back into play and wait for Sabalenka to implode. That's not the kind of play that has gotten her to the heights that she's gotten to in her career. So Sabalenka does have that advantage.
I think Sabalenka's playing a bit better now as well, a little bit more consistently. At least in this set, I don't recall. I mean, this is only her first game, but she's yet to double fault, which is a step forward compared to, both players in the first set. But also, she's hitting the ball pretty cleanly right now. And of course, I believe she's in the middle of a 4 games in a row streak. I think it was 3 all in the previous set. And it's 30 all on her serve. So, yeah, I'm just trying to think who served first in the last set. I think Sabalenka served first. So, I think it's 4 games in a row. Either way, it's a nice little area. So you think it's more nervousness than frustration? I mean, to be honest with you, Brandon, the two sort of do go hand in hand. You get easily more frustrated when you are anxious.
Nervous, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of all of that. I mean, at least going off of what she's shown us in the past 2 or 3 seasons, when she's gotten deep in Grand Slams, it's kind of just like she gets frazzled. With a game like hers, if you're internally frazzled and your mind's kind of, fraying internally, the big stroke production that she has, the way she kind of goes for the lines when she doesn't always have to, and just in general, her aggressive game style, I should say, just kind of wavers, and her serve kind of goes away, and we've seen that. So hopefully, I would like to see a decent match and just decent competition from anybody she plays. But I'd like to see her, if she's going to lose or if she's going to kind of, be the loser in a match, be a little bit more stable as much as she can. I think she's working on that.
Yeah. She's looking for her fourth appearance in a Grand Slam semi-final. At the moment, she got to the Wimbledon semi-finals in 2021. She got to and she's been in back-to-back US Open semi-finals. This is the furthest she's ever been in Australia. She was in the fourth round the last 2 years in Australia, but this year she's in the quarterfinals. So in terms of Melbourne, at least, this is unknown or new territory for her. I'm just trying to think who she lost to in the Wimbledon semi-final in was it Ash Barty she lost to, or Pliskova?
Sabalenka lost to Pliskova.
That's a
And she was up
disappointing
a
loss.
set. I think she won the first set 7-5, and Pliskova won the second and third set 6-4, 6-4.
Okay. So yeah, so she's lost 3 semi-finals in a row. But let's see if she gets that far first. She's got a game point here for a 2-love lead, and 1 foot in the semi-finals. Okay, on the forehand side now for both players. She mixes that up nicely. Is that enough to force the error? It is. So 2 games to love. Aryna Sabalenka leads 1 set to love and 2 games to love.
Vekic is one of those players that kind of, how some players like a Roger Federer, if we're being like, very obvious and extreme, who never look very flustered or hot or sweaty or any of those things, even in tight pressure situations. Vekic looks very flustered and hot and kind of just agitated in between the points right now. And I'm wondering, is it because of the conditions, or is it because of her serve and her game kind of letting her down in this moment?
A question here, and I think I was partially addressing it anyway about Sabalenka's Grand Slam history. So she's never actually gone out in a quarterfinal before, if that's something to go at. She's been in 3 quarterfinals and she's won them all, 1 at Wimbledon and 2 at the US Open. She is en route to winning her 4th consecutive Grand Slam quarterfinal, but she's been in 3 semifinals and lost them all. So we'll see. But she will be for me, she'll be the heavy favorite should she end up playing Linette.
She will be, yeah, obviously. She's going to have most of that match, if not all of it, on her racket. So she's going to be the person dictating, and I feel like she likes that. That's what she wants to and aims to do every time she gets on the tennis court.
Here's a question from Stephen, by the way. We're at love 30 on the Vekic serve. If it goes to love 40, I'll get back to the match. But if the big 4 didn't exist and he's keen to have Andy Murray in there, fair enough. Who do you think would have been winning the most slams in that period? I think Cilic would have had 1 or 2 more. Maybe players like Nishikori could have got on the board, Berdych as well.
Jo-Wilfried Tsonga probably would definitely be in that mix.
Yeah, Tsonga. Yeah, I mean, maybe Wawrinka might have 1 more. I guess
there's so many players. We can go back to the early 2000s, honestly.
Philippoussis could have got 1.
Yep. Nalbandian,
indeed.
Andy Roddick would have gotten more than 1.
The most? I mean, I would go Wawrinka just because he does have some, and he may have added 1 or 2 more to that toll.
I'll go Andy Roddick, actually. I know he only won 1.
Yeah.
And he kind of won it before there was a true establishment of the big 3, big 4. But I just think he got better with time, unfortunately, at the same time as everyone else did. So had they not existed, I think his level would have been good enough to at least add some more US Opens and probably in Australia to his resume.
Sabalenka does have some break points. The first one was saved by Vekic with an excellent sort of half volley backhander down the line. She's smiling as well, which is nice. It's 15-40 though, so she's got 2 more break points to save there. Brandon, by the way, suggesting, maybe Del Potro might have 1 or 2 more. Indeed, yeah, that's true. But the thing with Del Potro is, of course, the injuries. Anyway, 15-40 here. Vekic serving goes out wide. It's an ace for Vekic, so it's 30-40. That's 2 of the 3 saved.
At this point, Vekic should just go for it, like nothing to lose at all.
Yeah. Sabalenka's now ranking up the break points as well. She's won 3 from 9. Vekic goes down the tee, but it's wide, quite far wide as well. I sometimes look when I'm thinking about the anxiety on a big pressure point, if they do miss their serve, how far they miss it by. It does. Oh, and then Sabalenka's put a forehand into the net, so it's deuce. Let's just say it's a real pressure point. Maybe even more so than this match right now, because right now Vekic is quite far behind on the scoreboard. But let's just say you're break point down. You're facing a break point in the 5th set of a men's semi-final or something, and you put your first serve, 3 meters wide or something, it's like, yeah, it's more significant than a millimeter, if you like.
It doesn't set you up for great confidence in the second serve unless you already have that confidence already inserted in your game. But if you've been
Yeah.
struggling with double faults and you miss the first serve pretty significantly, just as a tennis player, you just start thinking about, well, hope the second serve doesn't go that way.
So, deuce, return of Sabalenka. Okay, so that must have gone wide. So it's a double fault for Vekic again. Double fault again. I think that's the 11th, and it's a break point. Pretty close, that one, in terms of the second serve being just out. But it's a double fault all the same. So it's break point number 4 for Sabalenka for a 3-love lead. Let's see if she takes it. First serve goes long. Where are you going with this one? Backhand return from Saba is just too good, just like it went on the first one as well. So that's 2 breaks she's had now, Sabalenka, aided and abetted by double faults, but also finally sealed the deal with backhand winners down the line.
Yeah, she's hitting strong. She's even more confident after getting that first set under her belt, and she looks settled and well on her way into a 4th Grand Slam semifinal.
Yep, indeed. 4th one and first one in Australia. She's not made, interestingly enough, she's not made a semi-final at the French. She's not made a quarterfinal there either. And yet she's obviously got big titles on clay, none more so than in Madrid. I think she won Madrid, right?
She did win Madrid. That one's always a little bit tricky because of the altitude. But I'm wondering, where else has she made a really good clay court run? Does she ever?
Maybe you're right.
I'm just
Did
thinking
she do
about
well
it.
in
Maybe.
Rome? Did she at some point? Just having a look
I think
now.
she made the semis. Yeah, I think she made the semis. So clay isn't something that she hates based off of record, but I do think her getting to the latter parts or the latter stages of the French Open probably will be her hardest task. Just based off the fact that her power is a lot more diluted on that surface.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, you're right. She got to the semi-finals in Rome a couple of years ago, and she won Madrid as well. But yeah, you're right. Madrid is of all the clay court tournaments in the build-up to the French Open, it is the outlier, if you like. I think Rome is probably the most similar. It's also the one obviously closest to in terms of the date. So it does give us probably the biggest indication. Swiatek and Rafa tend to do pretty well there, and less so in Madrid, certainly on Rafa's side. I think he's not won the Madrid title anywhere near as often as he's won Monte Carlo or Rome. So, yeah.
And we say not as much, but I think he has 4 Madrid titles, 3 of them on clay.
Still pretty good.
Right? Yeah, one of them was when it was an indoor surface. I can actually remember that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I think it's his only indoor title.
Yeah, I think that's true, actually. I think that's true. He has a weird stat indoors. I think Patrick McEnroe said that he tiered his surface level and his ability on. I think he's good on indoor, great on grass, amazing on hard courts, and phenomenal on clay.
Yep, that's a good way of weighing up. I think he's probably underrated though a little bit amongst tennis aficionados. I mean, he is probably slightly underrated on indoor hard. I think some moments have been circumstantial. He's frequently playing really well at the ATP Tour finals and getting to semi-finals and the final. But for one reason, I mean, he was serving for the match against Medvedev in 2020. I do feel as though that was probably his last chance to win that title. It was in London, the last one in London, I believe. He missed it last year. He's missed quite a few ATP Tour finals. He's also just come up against phenomenal opponents at various points. But this year was the first year he looked way off, if you like. I mean, he was phenomenal in 2019. He won 2 and lost 1, but he was phenomenal against. He was also really, really good in the Davis Cup that same period for Spain in 2019. So, and that was obviously indoors in Madrid. It can happen. It cannot sometimes happen.
It looks like Vekic is pushing to try to, at least make this a more respectable set. She's definitely pushing.
I have love 30 on my screen, but we're going to see if it goes to love 40. And it does. Yeah. Yes, respectable. We've got 20 people here. Someone's saying Sabalenka will win. Yeah, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. Also, goodbye, Janie. I could see that you're off to take a nap. Fair enough. Take care, Janie. Yeah, we'll be covering as well Shelton versus Tommy Paul on the channel as and when that begins. We've got 21 of you now on board, so make sure you hit that like button, subscribe. Feel free as well to give us a super chat. They are very much appreciated. Miles, you may not have seen it, but we got a super chat I think just after we went off air. I mean, it still counts, but I don't think either of us were in a position to react to the super chat we got after your commentary yesterday.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it came in right at the end. Right at the end.
I appreciate that somebody super liked my commentary enough to give a super chat.
I think it was, by the way, Vekic has got one of the breaks back, so it's 1-3. I think it was somebody who may know you to some extent. I don't know to what extent, but somebody who either follows you on Twitter or someone who may have joined one of your spaces. I'm not sure.
Or they just like my face, John. That could be a great thing too.
May well have been. But either way, they were very much appreciated. Brandon's also got to head out. See you later, Brandon. Take care and sleep well, Janie, as well. But the rest of you, we will continue, obviously, until this match concludes, which it's looking a bit more competitive now. Vekic has got that break back, or one of the breaks back.
I have a feeling that Sabalenka is going to break right back, actually. Vekic is nowhere near confident enough on her serve. If Vekic does hold serve and bring it down to just one break point, I think it'll be because of Sabalenka's errors.
I know what you mean. You and I have watched a lot of tennis between us, and sometimes the underdog, if you like, the person behind as well, sort of gets a break back, and you think, oh, okay, this could get interesting, and then the big dog, if you like, ends up crushing their opponent. But let's see. Love 15 on the Vekic serve. She hits her first serve into the net, and she reacts as though she's already double faulted in a way she just can't believe that she just keeps faulting today. I mean, I think she's normally fairly solid on serve.
Yeah, I've never seen her double fault like this, and I've never seen numbers like this in her career. Maybe I've missed the matches that she's played. I mean, they play so many matches a year, but I've never had double fault issues kind of go hand in hand when I think about Vekic.
Vekic there on the forehand had a chance and maybe a consideration to go into the net, to attack the net. It's a pretty short ball. The momentum is with her to attack the net, but maybe she just doesn't feel comfortable. By the way, she may well have been passed anyway, and the forehand wasn't probably good enough. And as a result, Sabalenka on the backhand side wins that point. Love 30.
Yeah, it's make it or break it time for Vekic. He has to put up or get back in the locker room fairly soon.
Nice forehand winner from her there, though. 15-30. Maybe your words were echoing in her ears. 15-30. Yes, if you are tuning in for the first time, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We will be covering... I'm trying to cover every single singles match on the men's and women's side for the rest of the tournament. I think we might just make it as well as we get to the latter stages. There'll be just after today, there will be a Sabalenka nets there 30 all.
If there's a Sabalenka-Rybakina matchup in the final, I'll volunteer as tribute.
For sure. I mean, we'll definitely be covering the final. I haven't got any clue as to who will be covering it, but that will be at about 3 a.m. for you, will it?
Yeah, I forgot that the final is always on the back end of the schedule in Australia time, which means it's early in the morning for me. It just depends on the final. Depends on who's in it. If it's Sabalenka and Rybakina, I have a feeling I can set an alarm for that. I have a feeling.
And I think it probably will be. Sabalenka has a break point here at 30-40. Was Wolfie rocking the vest? I think he was at this tournament. JJ Wolf. I've got a question from Stephen asking if he was rocking it during this tournament.
Is a vest shirtless? Does that mean just a shirtless?
Sleeveless, yeah.
Sleeveless. Yes, he was. Yeah, he switched it around quite a bit though, because he had the white vest or sleeveless shirt, and then he also had a red and a blue shirt with traditional sleeves. I think he's trying to be very patriotic there.
Yeah. I saw him wearing sleeves and plenty of sun cream as well, I think too.
Yeah, just around the eyes and nose and stuff.
Yeah.
Can't let the Australia heat and sun bring you down.
Indeed. Anyway, we're back to deuce here. Vekic trying to hold serve for the first time in this set, actually. 1-3, she's down. Deuce. Where are you going with this serve? You're getting it in at least. Backhand drop shot. Oh, I thought that was making it, but it didn't. Just click the top of the tape.
Yeah, they just showed the replay, and it barely nicked the top of the tape. If she just had a little bit more under it.
Yeah. I thought it was going to make it, actually, but in the end it didn't. Let's just now look at the replay as well. Yeah. It wasn't one of those that thought about crossing. It did comfortably hit the tape, if you like. But anyway, 1-3, and it's going to be a second serve. Okay. Backhand return from Sabalenka. Forehand Sabalenka. Winner Sabalenka. 4-1. She's got the double break advantage once again, as Miles predicted. 2 games away now from a place in her 4th Grand Slam semi-final.
Yep. She's playing like she deserves to be there, and I like
this
to see
second
it.
set. She's found her level. I mean, I probably to some extent probably from 3-all in the first. I could be wrong. It could have been 4-3, but I'm pretty sure 3-all from 3-all to now. She's won. What's that? 4. She's won 7 out of the last 8, I believe, games.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And in fact, she's broken serve every single time that she's. So
Yeah.
Vekic has lost her serve probably about 4 or 5 times in a row now, because the only time Vekic has won a game in that period has been on the Saba serve.
Yeah, she's definitely not confident when she's going up to the line. I mean, she's not even curling in the first serve. She's missing them in the net, so that can't help her confidence.
So I mean, it's kind of fairly obvious to state this, but there's a double issue with the double faults. First of all, she's double faulting far too often. I think it's 11 in this match already. And the other issue is that when the second serve is landing, Sabalenka
It's getting pummeled. Yeah.
Yeah, she's just pummeling them. She's eating them for breakfast because, Vekic is taking extra care on that second serve. I mean, it's almost like with Zverev as well. You see, he's very famous for double faulting inconvenient moments or going through various stages. But the thing that compounds it is you also see that second serve when it lands at like 75 kilometers an hour or something. And I remember against Chapeau in the 4th round in Australia last year, and even against Rafa in the Aussie Open semi-final, in the French Open semi-final when he got injured this year, just certain moments of anxiety, and the second serve just sort of lands in. Is that a return winner there from Vekic? I don't
looks
think
like
so.
it looks like it clipped the tape. Yeah.
The line. Love 15.
Yeah, clip the line, not the tape. What am I talking about?
Yeah, but I know what you mean. But yeah, just clip the line. Wow. Yeah, really did just clip the line, just millimeters. But still, 99% out is in.
100% in tennis. That's
There
it.
you go. Oh, Sabalenka goes long there. Love 30. There's probably been more breaks than holds in this match, I was suggesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Changes the racket. Yeah.
There's been some wobbly moments up at that service line.
Okay, 4-1, double break.
Not the most compelling quarterfinal of the bunch, but
the second set is sort of lost it a bit because Sabalenka's been pretty dominant. But the first set was nip and tuck. But I think we both probably came to the agreement was kind of Vekic had to win that first set really when she had all those chances.
Yep. If she was going to have a chance in this match, it was going to be winning that first set for sure.
Yeah.
There's just something about, I know people, go back and forth about wanting to see women play best of 5 in majors, and I wouldn't be opposed to that as long as they did it in the second week, not the first week, because I don't even know if there'd be enough court time for everybody to play best of 5. But
indeed,
I feel like in women's tennis, that first set is so crucial, especially more crucial than men's tennis in the best of 5 format at Grand Slams. If you win that first set, the average women's match is about, the longest it goes is about 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours, just based off of sets. So that first 30 minutes to an hour is very crucial in like setting the tone for the match.
I think Vekic should have probably won that point. She hits the post.
All you can do is laugh that one off. It pinged against the post and went the complete other direction.
Anyway, 30-all now. It was a backhand down the line that she was attempting there, of course, on the higher part of the net, but she ends up hitting the post, as it turns out. The 5-set sort of women's debate, I think, is an interesting one. I'm more in favor of it than otherwise. But I see the timing. And by the way, for many people tuning in, maybe they're not aware, but the French Open starts on the Sunday, as opposed to pretty much I think all the other Grand Slams start on the Monday. So the French Open adds a day to its schedule. I wouldn't be against starting even on the Saturday, so that way your tournament spans 3 weekends, which is kind of nice. I think if it was a case of trying to find some time, that may help. Just starting on the Saturday, or for some of the other slams starting on the Sunday as well. What else? I also see what you mean regarding I would love to trial it for a year to have the final as a 5-setter. My only concern with that is that in a way the consistency, the disparity, the differences. But I want to see the men's and the women's games get as close as possible, if you like, in so many respects. And I don't know if by having 5 sets in the final and 3 sets for every other match, whether that's more insulting than keeping it as just 3 sets all the way through.
I think it is. I think that's such a big difference to win 6 matches, best of 3, and then try to win a 7th and best of 5. That's almost kind of like a shock to your system. I do think, though, that if there needs to be probably more than a year for the women to adjust before a official verdict is made for them to play best of 5 at any point in the major, just because I do think conditioning is going to be something that people need to alter a little bit more, because you're going to be expected to go from at max a 3-hour match, maybe 4, to maybe 5 or 6, and that that is a difference in an athlete's world, I think.
Stephen here is going on with our chat and about 3 sets and 5, and yeah, definitely. In fact, that was probably going to be the next point I would raise. Vekic is looking reasonably comfortable on her serve, 1-5 down here. If that something changes, we will let you know. But yeah, then another possibility is that the men go down to 3 sets, for example, early on. I would probably make it a bit earlier than he posits here for the semifinals. I would probably go even back as far as the 4th round.
Absolutely, I agree.
One or both.
Absolutely think it should be split down the middle between the weeks in the tournament. I feel like everybody should go best of 3 for the first week, and then to really make sure that none of the prestige and kind of difficulty surrounding a Grand Slam isn't lost, everybody goes 5 sets in the second week,
Yeah. I mean, but there's so many women's matches that are tight, but are 2 sets to love. I'm thinking, for example, it's a nice backhand winner there from Vekic, 40-15. I'm thinking, for example, the second set between Ons Jabeur and Swiatek last year. Just felt as though Jabeur was just starting to find her feet in that final, and it was already gone from her, if you like. And the other thing is, people might say, oh, but you might see that third set might have been 6-2 for Swiatek and she wins easily. Yeah,
well, how do you know that? Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
change much.
Yep.
We're all there ready for another half an hour or so or plus of tennis. And if that happens, Swiatek lifts the trophy in 3 sets and she wins. Great. Doesn't diminish that final in terms of entertainment, in my opinion. And in fact, you never know. Swiatek might lose that set, or Jabeur wins it, and suddenly it's 2 sets to 1. And even if then Swiatek goes, I'm not saying it would have affected the result, but I think it would have affected the entertainment and the feeling of Jabeur getting back into that final.
I think it really takes the air out of the entire tournament sometimes when you have a competitive 2 weeks and then you get to a women's final that is still best of 3 sets, how it's mostly been in history. I think all Grand Slam finals for women in the open air have been best of 3 sets, but it kind of just takes the air out of the tournament when it's a match over in an hour or sometimes less than an hour, and you've kind of built that crescendo to a tournament and it kind of goes womp womp. So I think having best of 5 for the women in that second week prevents some of that from happening, and I don't think it's necessarily going to stop the best players from winning the most crucial matches. I think if anything, the best of 3 sets on the women's side has actually given more people or provide a little bit more parity between the people that are really top and people that are kind of towards the bottom, because you can play your best tennis and peak, as they say, for like an hour or and a half. A lot of people are able to kind of tap into that for an hour and a half, but can it really be sustained? And then we see in the next match, those that have kind of peaked for an hour and a half and got through that match weren't able to do it again or replicate it in the next round. So I think it'd be good for parity between men's and women's tennis if we got that kind of hybrid setup. I mean, hopefully somebody's listening to this that could, have the power to change it.
Yeah. I like 1 or 2 other things in tennis. I'm really pleased that, really pleased, an exaggeration, but I'm pleased that it's 3 sets pretty much everywhere else outside the Slam for the men. For example, I think Miami used to be 5. Am I right?
I think the finals of the Masters 1000 tournaments used to all be best of 5.
Okay. Yeah, right. Yes, because I remember a classic one between Federer and Nadal on clay, I think in Rome, but it could have been Monte Carlo, but I think it was Rome. I think Federer may have had match points actually in that match.
I think he had 3.
Yeah.
in Rome at one point. Yeah, that was one of the classic defining matches of their rivalry. Like, oh wait, this is actually a thing.
Yeah, indeed. And it certainly became a thing. Sabalenka going wide. Sabalenka here serving for the match at 5-2. I'll probably talk us through some of these points because they could be the final ones of the match. Where are you going with your second serve? You go long. That's where you go. Double fault. Sabalenka. I was talking quite a bit about the Sabalenka double faults at the beginning of the match because they were pretty much on a par with Vekic at one point. I think they had about 4 each, but really Sabalenka's tidied her serve up a bit since then. So that's sort of that.
Which is
now
good to see. Super good to see. Because I mean,
yeah,
just a year ago, it kind of would have, just felt like snow piling up and piling up.
yeah, would have consumed her for sure. This is turning into a bit of a rally. Forehand slice there, and she goes long. Sabalenka, love 30.
I do like her ability to reset more these days. She's definitely a player that emotes out there, but her ability to kind of reset, almost a la, I don't think she does it as intensely as Sharapova did it and purposefully, but the ability to kind of go back, set the point over, look at your strings, and the next point is a new point. It has nothing to do with the next one. Her ability to kind of get better at that has definitely moved her along in tennis, I think.
Indeed. Okay, so 15:30 here. Ghosty suggesting Sabalenka's just so good. Well, she's not playing great in this particular game, but anyway, 15:30, still 3 points away from winning the match, and she has aced, so it's 30 all.
I think a lot of her peers actually rate her pretty high. I think they do.
Yeah.
If the conversation comes up of best person on tour right now to not have a Grand Slam, she's definitely in it.
Fair enough. 30 all. Sabalenka serving, 2 points away from victory. Let's see how this one pans out. Where are you going to go with this serve? She's pausing a moment. Maybe a slight distraction from the crowd. Just 1 hour, 46 minutes on the clock. You're going to go down the tee or you're going to go out wide? You were going to attempt to go out wide, but you put it into the net. So it's a double fault from Sabalenka. Just as we were praising her for eliminating that from her game today.
It happens. It's like they just hear us in their ear or something.
Indeed. Okay, 30-40. Break point. Where are you going with the first serve? You're going down the tee, and it's successful to win the point. It's an unreturnable, and we are back to deuce, or we're at deuce, I should say.
Pretty low first serve percentage for both of them in this match. I think throughout the duration of the 3 sets, Sabalenka's at 56 and Vekic is right at 50.
Yeah, that is low to be both below 60%. Yeah, I can see that now on my screen as well. Yeah, both players at below 60%, and Vekic is at 50. Yeah, that's going to be a struggle. I saw with Holger Rune, for example, during the first 3 sets against Rublev, he was at about 48% and 55% in the two sets he lost. And in the set he won, he was at, I think, 65%, which tells you everything.
Yeah.
Is that another double fault from Sabalenka? I think it is. So it's a break point again for Vekic. Yeah, it's 3 double faults in this game alone, I believe.
I was so shocked because in some of those early round matches, maybe because it's less pressure, to a certain extent, less pressure, but she was able to just put so much safety on her first and second serves. I'm surprised it's not, showing like that progression is not showing right now.
Indeed. So it's break point again for Donna Vekic. At her advantage, 5-2 down as Sabalenka tries to serve this out. That second serve was a little anxious, but it's enough to win at the point, Sabalenka, because Vekic returns long. So we're back to deuce. The thing is, she could well break here, 5-3, but then she could well lose her serve. I think as we mentioned before, I think she just held serve a minute ago, but that was the first hold she'd had in about an hour.
You'll like this next point, I believe.
I love the unconventional return. I love it. I love it. You're absolutely right. The return was one of those unconventional ones where you comes into the body, and the best thing you can do is get a racket and pat it back. But actually, she got a racket and patted it back, but it was super difficult for Sabalenka to deal with from there.
She created a really great angle.
Saba did well, yeah, and she applauds her opponent. Good for you, Saba, because Vekic wins that point with a winner down the line. She's got another break point, and she goes long with that one, so it's deuce. That was one of those, though, from Sabalenka, where she then rushes into the net, having had that pat back from Vekic. She could go down the line with that, but of course that's the high part of the net. Super tricky to execute that with any kind of accuracy. So the slightly easier shot is to go cross court, but it's also the shot your opponent can anticipate, and Vekic did just that. Unreturnable, meaning match point, Aryna Sabalenka for a place in her 4th semi-final, Grand Slam semi-final. Okay, Sabalenka, first match point. How are you going to do? Are you going to get this serve in? Let's have a quick look. Goes down the tee. She does. Vekic does well to get a racket on it. She's got another racket on this, but it's going to go long, and she's got time to enjoy the moment. She is into her first Australian Open semi-final, where she will play Magdalena, Aryna Sabalenka, that is, of course. She wins 6-3, 6-2. Much relief for her. It was very tricky for her in the first set. Breaks of serve galore, but at 4-3, she's put on the accelerator, and she speeds on through into the semifinals of the Australian Open. Miles, give me your thoughts.
Great victory for Sabalenka. I think she really gritted her way through a very, very tight set where both of them obviously showed nerves, and the serve wasn't clicking like she thought it would have been, expecting more out of her serve, given how good it's looked in the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks of the season. So I'm pleased for her. I think she's definitely feeling her game well, and the ability to kind of fight, like I said, through a nervy first set and still get a comfortable 2-set victory at the end of the day shows me that she's playing well enough to win a slam. So, and she's such a heavy favorite in the semifinal. So it'll be interesting to see.
Ghosty's been a bit harsh for Vekic. I'm guessing in particular the second set. By the way, I thought this was a really funny comment. I forget who it was against, and in a way that's a good thing, because somebody said about a player a few months ago, said that their movement is so bad it looks like they're wearing jeans. It looks like they're playing in jeans.
Yeah, wearing denim on a tennis court is a no.
It was on the yeah, I know. It was on the men's side. By the way, I think it was in the previous stream. I was telling Damien I once played tennis with a guy who was smoking a cigarette while we were playing on a concrete court in a park. But still, and I think he may have been wearing jeans as well. But that was the less remarkable thing about that particular encounter. Anyway, listen, Sabalenka is through. She's in her 4th Grand Slam semi-final, her first Australian Open semi-final. There were a few moments of doubt for her, particularly in the first set. She will now go on to play Magda Linette, who is in her first ever Grand Slam semi-final. Very few people saw that one coming. Just give me your final thoughts on either today's match or that Linette semi-final.
I think the Linette semifinal just proves that she's going to be a tough out no matter who she plays moving forward. I mean, I think she'll pose a lot of problems for Sabalenka as far as getting 1 or 2 extra balls back. So that is a matchup that Sabalenka needs to be sharp for. But it seems as though she's able to kind of steady the ship, even if it gets a little rocky in her matches, which was good to see in this quarterfinal win against Donna Vekic. So I'm looking forward to exciting semifinals on both of the women's tours, honestly, or both of the women's semifinals. They should be pretty exhilarating, I think.
I agree, but is it fair of me to suggest that the Rybakina Azarenka one is slightly more exciting?
No, not at all. Those two are the Grand Slam champions, so that by merit should be the one that people are circling to kind of sit down and grab their popcorn. And I too will be looking to see who the winner of that one is, because the winner on paper, just by experience, should be the person going into the final who has, maybe one hand on the trophy already.
Okay, Well, Miles, we have had both hands on the commentary steering wheel today, pretty much throughout. I was just taking one hand off the wheel momentarily just to write something there, but I am back with you 100% now. Who was the woman interviewing Sabalenka? I've never seen her. I do
That's
know
Jelena
who it is.
Dokic.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And there was a very funny moment a year ago when she was interviewing Elise Cornet, because I think 15 years prior to that, she had played Elise Cornet as Elise Cornet was knocking at the door of her first ever Grand Slam quarterfinal. She didn't make it because I think she beat her. And so Cornet didn't, I think that's the narrative, that Cornet didn't make her Grand Slam. And 15 years later, Cornet makes her first ever Grand Slam Grand Slam quarterfinal. And she's the one who's interviewing her to say, congratulations. Sorry for denying you 15 years ago this moment, but at least you're here now. Better late than never.
Full circle, right?
Yeah, indeed. Listen, Miles, a big thank you for you joining us today. I hope we get to see you again before this tournament is out. I'm also hoping, fingers crossed, that maybe Ashley can join us tomorrow. I was talking to her earlier about potentially joining us today, but she's a very, very busy bee. But she did suggest that she might be able to help us out and give us some commentary for one of the two semifinals on the women's side tomorrow. So fingers crossed that happens. But yeah, Miles, thanks for joining us.
No problem. I always enjoy it. Thank you guys for engaging in the commentary down below in the live chat. And thank you for having me and sharing the platform. Always fun to call the matches with you, John.
Great, Miles. Thanks very much. And just give us a quick reminder as to where we can find you on Twitter and what media stuff you're producing.
Yep, all of the good things I produce in tennis and beyond can be found at Tuned Into Tennis, TUNEDINTOTENNIS on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, and TikTok.
Snapchat?
I actually think I just made that up. I don't think we're on Snapchat.
I've seen some cool shorts as well, YouTube shorts as well, that I saw you produce a couple of months ago. I thought they were pretty cool regarding, I think it was various players, 2022s maybe, or maybe even looking towards 2023.
Yes, something I might explore to doing outside of the Christmas season, but it was really cool to kind of see.
Yeah, right, yeah.
It was cool to see. It was a countdown effect to the 25th day of December, which is Christmas, and just kind of getting us prepared for the new year.
Yeah, no, I remember, particularly one I remember on Sabalenka, and of course, yeah, there was a Christmas theme to that. So yeah, make sure you check him out, and also check out Miles's podcast, which is also Tuned Into Tennis. And yeah, Miles, we'll be speaking to you very soon.
All righty, take care.
Cheers, bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.